Hello, and welcome back to Daily English Talk. I'm Emily, and today I want to talk with you about something that almost every English learner struggles with at some point, and that is how to start a conversation in English. Not how to continue it, not how to end it, but how to start it. That very first moment when you open your mouth and say something, and your heart beats a little faster, and you think, what should I say now? If you've ever felt nervous starting a conversation in English, I want you to know something very important right away. This feeling is completely normal. Even native speakers sometimes feel awkward starting conversations, especially with new people. So if you feel shy, unsure, or scared of making mistakes, you are not doing anything wrong. You are human. I want to talk today not like a grammar teacher, but like a real person who uses English every day. I want to show you how conversations really start in real life, not in textbooks. Because real conversations are simple, imperfect, and often very short at the beginning. Let me tell you something from my own life. I remember moving to a new city a few years ago. I didn't know many people, and even though English is my native language, starting conversations still felt uncomfortable. I would stand in a cafe or at work and think, should I say something or should I stay quiet? So this is not only an English learner problem, it's a human problem. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is thinking that starting a conversation needs to be interesting, clever, or special. It doesn't. In real life, most conversations start with very boring sentences. And that's good news. For example, one of the most common conversation starters in English is simply, "Hi, how are you?" This sentence is everywhere. You hear it at work, in shops, at school, on the street. And here is something important. Most of the time, people are not asking for a deep, honest answer. They are just opening the door to conversation. So when someone says, "How are you?" and you say, "I'm good, thanks. How about you?" you are doing exactly what native speakers do. You are not being boring, you are being natural. Another very common way to start a conversation is by talking about the situation you are both in. This is extremely common in daily life. For example, if you are waiting somewhere, you might say, "It's taking a long time today," or "It's really busy here." These sentences are not deep, but they create connection. I do this all the time. If I'm standing in line at a store and someone is next to me, I might say, "Wow, this line is long today." And very often, the other person smiles and says something back. And just like that, a conversation has started. Learners often think they need perfect sentences, but these small comments are actually better than perfect grammar. They sound human. Another easy way to start a conversation is by asking a simple question. And I want to be very clear here. Simple questions are powerful. You don't need complicated ones. For example, is this seat taken? Do you come here often? What time is it? These questions are not only about information, they are invitations to talk. In my daily life, I often start conversations by asking for small help. Can you help me with this? Or, do you know where the bathroom is? Even if I already know the answer, it opens a door. Now let's talk about a very common fear. Many learners are afraid of silence. They think if there is silence, the conversation has failed. But silence is normal. Native speakers pause all the time. Sometimes we don't know what to say next. That's okay. Starting a conversation does not mean you must talk for 10 minutes. Sometimes the conversation is only 2 sentences long. And that's still a success. For example, you say, "Nice weather today." And the other person says, "Yeah, it's beautiful." And then you both go back to what you were doing. That's a real conversation. It counts. Another thing I want to talk about is tone. Your tone is often more important than your words. If you say something simple with a friendly tone, people will feel comfortable. You can say, "Hi," in a cold way, or you can say, "Hi," in a warm way. The word is the same, but the feeling is different. I often tell learners to smile when they speak. Even if the other person can't see you, smiling changes your voice. It makes you sound more open. Let's talk about starting conversations at work, because this is a very common situation. At work, conversations often start with work-related topics. How's your project going? Are you busy today? Did you finish that report? These questions are simple and safe. You don't need to be personal right away. Over time, conversations become more relaxed. In my own work life, many friendships started with very boring sentences like, "Is this meeting starting now?" Or, "Do you need help with that?" There was nothing special about the sentence, but it showed openness. Another common situation is starting conversations with people you already know a little, but not well. Maybe a neighbor, a classmate, or a colleague. In these situations, talking about routine things works very well. How was your weekend? How's your day going? How's everything? These questions are easy, and they give the other person space to choose how much they want to share. Now let's talk about a big mistake learners make. Many learners memorize conversation starters, but they don't listen to the answer. They are already thinking about the next sentence. Real conversation is about listening. If you ask, "How was your weekend?" and the person says, "It was pretty relaxing, I stayed at home," you can continue by reacting. "That sounds nice." Or, "Sometimes staying home is the best." You don't need a new question. You just need to respond like a human. I want to share something personal here. When I was younger, I was very shy, even in my own language. I often worried about saying the wrong thing. But over time, I realized that people don't remember your grammar mistakes. They remember how you made them feel. If you sound kind, interested, and relaxed, people will enjoy talking to you even if your English is not perfect. Starting a conversation is not about showing your English level. It's about connection. Another very natural way to start conversations is by giving a small comment or compliment. For example, "I like your jacket," or "That's a nice notebook." These comments don't need to be big. Small and honest is best, and you don't need to continue after that. The other person might say thank you, and the conversation may grow naturally. Now, I want you to imagine a real situation. You are in a cafe. You are sitting next to someone. You want to practice English, but you feel nervous. Instead of thinking, "I need a perfect sentence," think, "What is happening right now?" Maybe the music is loud. Maybe the coffee smells good. Maybe it's raining outside. You can say, "This place is really cozy," or "I love the smell of coffee." These sentences are simple, real, and natural. Native speakers start conversations like this every day without thinking. And one more important thing before we continue. You don't need to start conversations all the time. It's okay to be quiet. Learning English is not about becoming a different person. If you are naturally quiet, that's okay. Start small. Even one sentence is progress. In the next part, we'll talk more deeply about keeping conversations going after you start them, how to handle nervousness, and how to practice starting conversations in a natural way in your daily life, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. So now that we've talked about how conversations really start and why they don't need to be perfect, I want to help you feel more comfortable with what happens after that first sentence. Because for many learners, the fear doesn't disappear after hello. It often moves to the next thought, which is, what do I say now? And what if the conversation becomes awkward? The truth is, awkward moments happen to everyone. They happen to native speakers too. Silence, pauses, and unfinished thoughts are a normal part of real communication. A conversation is not a performance. It's a shared moment. One thing I've learned in my own life is that good conversations are not about talking a lot. They are about reacting. When someone says something, you don't need a perfect response. You just need a human response. For example, if someone says, "I'm really tired today," you don't need to think of a new topic. You can simply say, "Yeah, those days are hard," or "I know that feeling." That's enough. That is connection. Many learners feel pressure to always ask questions, but sometimes statements are better. You can say, "That sounds stressful," or "That must have been fun." These small reactions make conversations feel natural. Let me share something from my daily life. When I meet someone new and we start talking, I often repeat or reflect what they said. If they say, "I just moved here," I might say, "Oh, you just moved here." This shows interest, and it gives them space to continue. This technique is very powerful. and it's used all the time in English. It doesn't require advanced vocabulary. It just requires listening. Another important thing to remember is that conversations don't need to be long to be successful. Sometimes the best conversations are short. You talk, you smile, and you move on. That's okay. Now let's talk about how to practice starting conversations when you feel shy or nervous. One of the best ways is to start with people who already expect interaction. For example, cashiers, receptionists, coworkers, or classmates. These situations are safe. You can say, "Hi, how's your day going?" or "Busy today?" Even if the conversation ends quickly, you practiced. I often tell learners to think of conversations like small exercises, not tests. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just using English. Another great way to practice is by talking about routines. Routines feel safe because they are familiar. You can talk about weather, work, weekends, or daily plans. For example, "Mondays are always busy for me," or "I usually come here in the morning." These sentences are easy, but very natural. One mistake learners often make is trying to translate directly from their native language. Sometimes this works, but sometimes it sounds unnatural. Instead, try to notice how English speakers really start conversations. Listen to podcasts, watch interviews, or even listen to people talking around you if you live in an English-speaking country. You'll notice how simple most conversations are. Another thing I want to talk about is fear of mistakes. I want to be very honest with you. You will make mistakes. Everyone does. And most of the time, people don't care. If you say something a little wrong, native speakers will usually understand you. They might help you. Or they might not even notice. In my own experience, when someone speaks English with an accent or makes small mistakes, I don't think anything negative. I think, this person is trying. That takes courage. So be kind to yourself. Let's talk about body language and energy. When starting conversations, your body speaks too. Eye contact, a small smile, relaxed posture. These things matter. You don't need to be loud or outgoing. Calm and friendly is enough. I also want to talk about conversations in English when you don't understand everything. This is very common. You don't need to panic. You can say, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" Or, "What do you mean?" These are normal phrases. Native speakers use them all the time. Not understanding is part of conversation. It doesn't mean you're bad at English. Another useful phrase is, "I'm still learning English." This sentence can change everything. It creates patience and understanding. And most people respond kindly. Over time, you will notice something interesting. The more you start conversations, the easier it becomes. Not because your English suddenly becomes perfect, but because your fear becomes smaller. Confidence comes from experience, not from waiting until you're ready. I want to say something very important before we finish. You don't need to become someone else to speak English. You don't need to be more confident, more talkative, or more interesting. You just need to be you using another language. Your personality can exist in English. It might feel quiet at first, but it will grow. Starting a conversation in English is not about saying the perfect thing. It's about showing openness, curiosity, and kindness. And every time you try, even if it feels small, you are improving. If you want to keep practicing real, natural English in a calm and supportive way, make sure to subscribe to Daily English Talk. New episodes are here to help you feel more confident speaking English in everyday life, step by step, at your own pace. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again very soon.